welcome to another vlog. Why I love Seattle, or things to know about Seattle before you move to Seattle. I've been living in Seattle for a little over 1.5 years now, and I wanted to make this video to kind of give a summary of my own experiences, and not really pros and cons, but you know, the different aspects of the city. Here, I know the first thought that comes to the mind of people is the weather. Like, there's so much hype about Seattle's gloomy weather or bad weather, cloudy weather. So what's the big deal? I mean, many cities, even Florida, like where my university was, we would get a rainfall for like an hour every day, especially during fall, and it was not a big deal. Like, I was fine with it, and many other people were, and I was like, okay, let's move there, what's the big deal? But let me break this to you, it is real. The cloudy weather stays for weeks, like for 10 weeks straight. You won't have sun. And just like today, if you see behind me, it is cloudy, and it's not just like any city cloudy. There are like layers of cloud. So if you're not living in, let's say, high-rise apartment or like a top floor of an apartment building, like where I am right now, there is a very good chance that you're just going to be living in dark. Like, you wouldn't, if you're not getting a lot of light into your apartment, if you don't have like a big window, you're gonna be surviving on like lamps and lights, artificial lighting instead of natural light. If that's okay by you, that's fine. Initially it did affect me. My eyes took some time to adjust to like just being constantly in like artificial light instead of natural light. The other thing was the living expenses. Coming to Seattle, I already knew that they had a very high sales tax. I mean, compared to Florida or some other city, which is like just 6% in sales tax. So here it's around 10 to 11% depending on what you buy, where you buy, which is pretty high. It's comparable to what California has, which is one of the highest in the country. But the other good news is that when you compare Seattle to California, there are a lot of jobs, a lot of tech jobs here, almost as many as California, but there is zero income tax. There is no state income tax here. The federal income tax still applies, which I think is a good thing. I mean, how much you spend in sales tax depends on your spending habits. You can control it. But how much you pay in income tax, that's not really controllable. You have to pay it irrespective of you're going shopping or not. Now, talking about the average cost of like a good sized one-bed apartment, in like big cities like New York, I know it costs more than $3,000 to $4,000. In Seattle, $2,000, a little over like $2,200 for, let's say, around 600 to 700 square foot apartment. Depends. So when I'm talking about Seattle, it's not just Seattle city, it's great. It also comprises of Redmond City and Bellevue City, which we call as like east side or eastern side of Seattle, which are like upcoming cities. We'll talk about them more. I personally feel, because I'm an Indian, so when we eat out, I've felt when we visited California that the food price here, like eating out, is more expensive than even California. So that's one thing to consider. And I'm not talking about groceries because I just don't remember the prices of groceries. I'm just not even going to talk about that. I feel there are not a whole lot of good Indian eating out options here, although I have seen an upward trend in like food options. Some of the good restaurants like Fuzzy Cafe, if you're from New Delhi or NCR region, you would know this brand at Fuzzy Cafe. They recently came into the city. They serve good food. There are a bunch of others as well, but we personally don't think it's that authentic. It doesn't matter so much to us because we don't eat out a lot. And I would say that is kind of true for any other American city. America, you don't get authentic Indian food at any other place. If you're in Seattle, you're just 2 hours away from Canadian border. So if you have Canadian visa, you can actually drive to your closest like Indian neighborhood in Canada, which is Surrey, where you can get a lot of authentic Indian food options. Surrey, Vancouver, it's all full of good food options. And also, if you're in Seattle and you want to go to Alaska, the port of Seattle, people actually fly into Seattle to catch those cruises, like Alaska cruises, because this is one of the closest port. The cruise routes are not all the same, but they usually start from Seattle, they go to Vancouver, and then to Alaska, so it's pretty good. Again, staying on the topic, when I was moving to Seattle, some of the other things that I considered, because there's so much hype about like the crime rate in Seattle, it's pretty high. So again, it depends on which part of the city you are in. So Seattle, definitely it's not safe. I'll be honest with you, it's not safe. There have been times where I was like almost chased by a homeless person. It's not the first city where I have seen homeless people. I've also seen homeless people in, let's say, New York. In Florida, not so much, but I have seen those people, but they're not so, they won't engage with you, they won't really, you know, come near you or try to chase you. But here it's different. So there are lots of camps set up right up outside of like a grocery store. Again, downtown Seattle is the worst place to be, and especially South Seattle, but we live like 10-15 minutes north of downtown. Still, it's not the safest place to be at. That said, the east side, which I was referring to as Redmond and Bellevue, they are very safe. Although car theft is kind of like a major issue in entire Seattle, Redmond, Bellevue area, but not so much of shooting and other stuff. So some people tend to stay on the east side. Now, talking in general about living in Seattle, so every place has its like good and bad sides. What I personally enjoy living in Seattle and why I'm not even thinking about moving to any other city is how beautiful Seattle is. Like even now, if you see outside, it's called the Evergreen State for a reason. So it stays green throughout the year, and it's so beautiful. These, like even the fall is even more beautiful. And talking about summer, so yeah, we get like 10 months of no summer, I would say 10 months of all within like 5 to 10 minutes of where I am. I have like more than 15 scenic spots or parks or beaches to just go be there, you know, hang out with friends or by myself. So that's one thing I really like about this place. Yeah, the summers are very pleasant. So in summers, you wouldn't believe, up until 10 p.m. or 10:30 p.m. it's still not dark. It's still like kind of daylight, and you can just walk around. How beautiful the city is, like the nature, it's so naturally blessed. I know California is also naturally blessed, but let's just talk about Seattle. It's green throughout the year. It has its share of like wildfires and like extreme summer. On the topic of weather, so we have already talked about summers, but winters are also not that bad, and winters are not freezing cold. Yes, you get rain, but rain is just like drizzling rain, and people get used to it. It's not like it's pouring, like life has stopped, nothing could take place, because it's not that kind of rain. So I'm okay with that, because I personally don't like to, you know, clean snow off my car before I go to office. So that's good for me. And again, talking about scenic beauty, we also have a very beautiful kind of gem of the city, which is Mount Rainier Peak. So Mount Rainier is, I think it's pretty, you know, amazing to look at it while you're driving or while you're just sitting. My party has a very good view of Mount Rainier, so I feel blessed. If you're not like a nature mountain person, maybe you won't get it, but I personally and also there are like a lot of state parks. We have that kind of gives us an option to go camping each season, hiking, camping if you're an outdoor person. But I think it's always good to have so much nature around you, and that's again within 1 hour, within 30 minutes from the city. It's not like you have to drive 3 hours out or 5 hours, only then you will see it. And there are also like lots of waterfalls. About driving time, I have personally noticed that when I was in California, when I was like visiting Fremont, if I have to get to, let's say, Fremont from San Jose, from SF, it takes a lot of driving time, like around easily 1 hour to get from one place to another, even like adjacent cities, which is I would say a lot of time. So in Seattle, if I have to get to, you know, Bellevue or someplace, let's just say get a donut, it's just a 5-minute drive. I think I personally love that working from home. Otherwise, if I have to, you know, just go out, grab some food and just drive back in, it just doesn't take more than 5-10 minutes, which I think is amazing. That's what I would call a city should be, with like everything is conveniently located from where you live. I think that's very important to me. I didn't realize I was missing it before where I used to live, but now Seattle, it's almost like you have 2 or 3 big cities around you if you like get bored of just Seattle. You obviously have downtown Seattle, not a good place to live, definitely a good place to visit during the day because it has the best restaurant option. Like the famous restaurants are mostly in Seattle downtown. Now the famous internet restaurants are mostly in Bellevue area. Redmond is the headquarters of Microsoft, so it's not highly developed, but definitely a very safe place to be. So they also have a downtown, Bellevue downtown, Redmond downtown. Obviously about Seattle, the only thing I don't like is the crime and the drug problem here. Like public transportation is, I think it's still, it exists. I wouldn't say it's gone away, but it exists. They are working on like a metro train which would run between Seattle to Bellevue. There's already a link train which goes from certain spots in the Seattle city to the airport. So that's something I personally like. Is usually apartments or buildings throughout US don't have like a terrace, rooftop terrace. This particular state is the only one where I've seen apartment buildings they have a rooftop terrace, which I personally love. Most of the apartment buildings have a sky lounge, have an indoor roof area, and I really enjoy it. Not that you're going to be able to use it throughout the year, but whenever you're able to, I think that's worth it. So these are some of the reasons why I love to be in Seattle. There are some good, so cute, like bakeries, Korean bakeries, Japanese bakeries, a lot of Thai. Just be sure you're not outside walking alone, you're inside before it gets dark. And yeah, just have like a healthy group of friends, just be with them, be aware of how you interact with strangers. That kind of sums up this video. If you want to know more about Seattle or you want me to make a part 2 of this video, please comment down below and please like, share and subscribe. See you in my next video.